Team Canada is a designation for any of the many teams that come together to represent Canada. So, for instance, we have Team Canada at the Olympics. We have Team Canada when it comes to hockey. Hooray! We have a Team Canada right now. I don't know if you knew this. We have a Team Canada right now in Sydney, Australia, participating in the, let me see if I can get this right, Invictus Games. Right?
Yes.
So we have a Team Canada right there, right now, participating in those games. Team Canada for these games are military people, current or veterans who have been disabled in some way. And so they're participating in these games. So we have Team Canada right now in Sydney, Australia. The idea of team is that it's a group of people who have come together and they have a common purpose, a common cause. And so Team Canada, they're representing Canada. My grandson this week was reading a story about a basketball player, Karim Abdul. Thank you. Thank you. You know who he is. This man, 7 feet and 2 inches. I'm 6, right? He's this tall, right? He played 20 seasons in the NBA. He won many awards. He was a great player. In fact, some people have said he was the greatest basketball player of ever. Now, if you were playing basketball, wouldn't you want him on your team? What if he was on the other team? Right? What if he was on the opposition team? Team opposition. He's on the other side. Have you ever noticed that opposition seems to come to us like, not just one thing at a time, but it just kind of loads on? Have you ever noticed that? You get up in the morning and it's like just a little bit late. You leave for work like just a little bit late. But the traffic's really heavy, heavier than normal. And so you get to work a little bit late. And this happens to be the day that your boss decides that he's going to tell you about a few of the things you need to improve in your job. Right? You get home at the end of the day, the kids are grumpy. There's nothing in the fridge for supper. But you have to get something together. You finally get them all together. The laundry's not done. You get to the end of this day, and the sheets that you need to go to bed so you can just forget about that day, they're still in the washer. Have you ever had a day like that? Right? Like there's just a whole lot of things. That's team opposition. Like coming at you all at the same time. Well, that can happen. The question is, what do you do when you have that kind of opposition? What do you do when team opposition comes against you in your life? What do we do as a church when team opposition comes against us? And opposition can come in different forms. But how do we as a church respond to that opposition? Because what we want to do here is we want to see the Church of Jesus Christ grow and be built up. And we want to share Jesus with our community. And when a church wants to do that, there will be opposition. So what do we do when we experience opposition to wanting to see our church built up, the Church of Jesus Christ, and share Jesus with our community? What do we do with that opposition?
Right.
You're right. Nehemiah had that kind of opposition.
Yeah.
And we read about it in Nehemiah chapter 4. He had lots of opposition. Now Nehemiah has returned to Jerusalem, and he has this project to build the wall. Because the wall is going to make a huge difference for Jerusalem in terms of the power and the influence of Jerusalem in that area. And so Nehemiah wants to build the wall. It's a revitalization project for Jerusalem. Now what will Nehemiah and the people do when they experience opposition to their project to build the wall of Jerusalem? You have to understand the opposition is building against Nehemiah. We already met Sanballat the Samaritan in chapter 1. We met Tobiah the Ammonite in chapter 1. We met the Arabs in chapter 1. They are enemies of Jerusalem and Judah. And so now Jerusalem and Judah seem to be surrounded because the Samaritans are in the north, and the Ammonites are in the east, and the Arabs are in the south. And there's Jerusalem with no walls, and there's Judah right there in the middle. But the opposition is growing because team opposition is now going to bring on some more players in a new gameplay against Nehemiah and the people building the wall. Well, the first thing that happens, the first gameplay that they have is ridicule. We read that Sanballat, the Samaritan, he's the governor of Samaria, he hears that the project is really going to go forward. I mean, it's not, it's going, it's happening. It's happening. And he gets angry. In fact, he gets greatly enraged. There's no anger management program that's going to settle this guy down, okay? Don't even make a suggestion. No anger management program is going to hold him back. And so he has Tobiah with him. And he has the Samaritan army with him. And what I imagine is happening is they ride up to this wall that's being rebuilt. And they're close enough that they can see the wall, and they can see the guys working on the wall. And the guys working on the wall can see them. And so they come up, and their first approach is ridicule. So they're talking to one another. But what I really imagine is they're talking to one another, and they're really talking loud enough so the guys on the wall can hear what they're saying. And it's amazing what happens here. Like, it's almost ridiculous. It's like high school again. These guys are leaders of a people group. They're governors. And this is their approach. Well, let me read it for you. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 2. This is what Sanballat says. What are these feeble Jews doing? He's talking to his brothers, it says. He's talking to the army of Samaria. What are these feeble Jews doing? Well, he hopes they're feeble. Right? He hopes they won't succeed. Will they restore it for themselves? Well, no, of course not. They're not restoring Jerusalem for him, that's for sure. They're going to restore it for themselves. But he's taunting them. Will they sacrifice? Well, that's interesting. Because remember, Ezra has returned to the land. And the temple worship has been restored 12 years before. And there's been a great revival. So sacrifices are going on. What is Sanballat doing here? He's saying, you really think worshiping your God is going to make that much difference? You've got to be kidding. Will they finish up in a day? No. But they do finish in 52 days. An incredible feat. Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish and the burned ones at that? No, they're not going to revive stones. They're going to take the stones that are there and they're going to place them in place for this wall that they're building. Well, Tobiah is always close by Sanballat. And he adds his 2 cents worth as well. He says, that wall, if a fox climbed up on that wall, it would fall down. Now, note this. Archaeology has uncovered a portion of Nehemiah's wall. It's 9 feet. So, I got about 3 feet in my stride. 1, 2, 3. So this wall is over twice the size of our middle island. 9 feet of stone wall. If a fox climbs up on that, it's going to fall down. Can't you just see the sarcasm dripping from that statement? It's ridicule. It's the approach of ridicule, trying to demoralize the people that are building the wall. Even a fox will knock that down. Well, how would you respond to that kind of ridicule? I mean, if someone said to you, did you go to that Baptist church? I heard that's a cult. They do terrible things there. How do you respond to that? Or if someone says, you go to church? You're kidding. There's no God. Why are you wasting your time? That's kid stuff. Sunday school. What do you say to that? Or if someone just says, church, they just want your money. Yeah. Right? That's ridicule. How are you going to respond? How are we going to respond to that kind of ridicule? How did Nehemiah and the people of Jerusalem respond to the opposition of ridicule to their building of the wall? Nehemiah and the people responded with prayer and action. They responded with prayerful diligence. In short, pray and get to work. That's how they responded. Pray and get to work. Oh, but that's not the end. You see, team opposition is growing now. That was just the first approach. The next approach is physical attack. And now the team is growing. So remember, they've got Samaria to the north. They've got the Ammonites to the east. They've got the Arabs to the south. Now the team grows, and they include the Ashdodites to the west. Now what happened was, this area was a Philistine area to the west. They had 5 cities, one of which was Ashdod. And when the Babylonians came and took away the Jews, they ravaged the whole area. They took people from the whole area, including the Philistines. Maybe there are still a few indigenous Philistines around, but they would have been repopulated like some of the other areas. So now they're called Ashdodites, people from Ashdod, that whole area. So now, north, east, south, west, Jerusalem is surrounded with enemies. And these enemies are getting together and they're threatening a physical attack. They're going to come and they're going to kill people because they want to stop this project. They want to stop it. And again, we read that they're very angry. Very angry. They've lost control. They're losing control of Jerusalem. They're losing control of Judah. It wasn't officially theirs, but they exerted a lot of influence in this area. And when the walls are built, Jerusalem's going to be stronger. It's going to exert influence in this area. They're losing control, and they're very angry. And so they say they're going to come, and they're going to use physical force to stop what's happening here. You know, I find that hard to relate to. I find that hard to relate to. If we lived in northern Nigeria, then we could relate to it because people are shot for being followers of Jesus. People are hacked to bits by machetes by being followers of Jesus. Churches are burned because it's a Christian church, a church that honors Jesus. But we don't have that kind of thing here. So it's a little hard to relate to this, but let's put it this way. What if you showed up on Sunday morning and there was all sort of nasty graffiti all on the outside of the church? How would you respond? How should we respond to that kind of defacement of our building? Or what if you showed up on Sunday morning and an arsonist or a group of arsonists that decided to burn our church down because it's a Christian church? How should we respond to something like that? Now, I admit it seems a little far away, but yesterday there was a synagogue attacked. Last I heard, 14 people died. Last year, there was a mosque that was attacked. You know, some people put religion all in the same basket. Whether you're Jewish or Muslim or Christian, you're all in the same place. It's not that it couldn't happen. How would we respond to that sort of physical attack on our intent to build up the Church of Jesus Christ here in this place and to reach out to our community with His good news? How would we respond? Well, Nehemiah, again, responds, pray and get to work. Pray and get to work. He says, okay, we're going to have some people that are armed. They have to have spears and swords, and we need to get this organized. But in any case, they get to work. See, the wall is now up to half height, all the way around. That means the project is really intimidating to these enemies. We read in verse 6, the wall is up to half height because the people work hard. We're now into the next attack, the physical attack, and the wall continues to grow. But they respond this way: pray and get to work. You know, some opposition comes from outside, and some opposition comes from inside. And there's inside opposition as well. And it's understandable. You know, some of the people are getting discouraged, and they're experiencing fear. Discouragement and fear. Those are powerful enemies. This is opposition that's coming from the inside. They're getting discouraged. They're thinking, we can't do this. This is too much. We need help, but we don't have help. We can't get this done. And so they're getting very discouraged. And then there's the fear. The physical attack aspect is still there. There's the fear of that, and it's starting to well up, and it's starting to be there and just just overcome their hearts. Have you ever had that kind of experience where discouragement and fear overcomes you? I'm sure many of you have. You know where they're at. And so in verse 12, some Jews come. Now these Jews would be living among the enemy. So you need to understand there's Jerusalem, there's Judah, but Jewish people are spread around this whole region. And so some of them are living in Samaria, some in Ammon, that kind of thing. Well, they come to Jerusalem. So if I were one of the discouraged people experiencing fear, and I saw these other Jewish people coming to me, I'd be thinking, wow, that's great. We need help, and here they come. We're going to have help now. And you know what they say? They say, you need to get out of here. What? You need to get out of here. You need to come with us. They say it 10 times, which just means they say it a whole lot. You need to get out of here while you can. Forget this building the walls thing. Forget the revitalization of Jerusalem. Get out of here while you can. That's not encouraging. Okay? That's very discouraging. But that's what they said. So how did Nehemiah and the people respond? Given opposition of discouragement and fear to their project of building the walls. Well, it's the same thing. They pray and they get to work. Now, Nehemiah says some important things here. Verse 14. Nehemiah says to them, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. Now remember, this building project now includes defending themselves physically, okay? Their work now includes defending themselves physically. But do you notice what Nehemiah says right in there? Who are they praying to? God, who is great and awesome. God, who is greater than any of the enemies. That's who they're praying to. And he reminds them, well, God, who is great and awesome, to encourage them. Well, it must have sank in. The message must have sank in. Pray and get to work. Because just a little further on, it says, from that day forward, and then it gives kind of a summary. It's sort of a list of what they did. So they had some people who had spears and swords, and some people were guards, and some people were workers, and they had armor on, and they had a sword on. That must have been incredibly clumsy. Can you imagine building a wall? And you've got armor on, and you've got a sword, or in today's language, you've got a rifle over your back, and you've got a knife at your side. That's awkward if you're building a wall. But that's what they did. They did what was necessary. Pray and get to work. And that's what they did in the face of these oppositions. So opposition can come from the outside. In this case, it was ridicule. It was physical attack that they said was coming, physical attack. It can come from the inside. It can be depression, discouragement, rather, and fear. But there's something else that can happen as well. Attack can come in a different way, and it comes from the inside. I'd like you to turn the page back to chapter 3. Now, I said last week, chapter 3 is this wonderful chapter that talks about how the people all got together. They responded to that small team that Nehemiah put together, a small revitalization team, and they said, this is what we need to do. And the people all got together and said, yes, let's do it. And they're out there working on the wall. And they're doing it. And throughout the whole chapter here, it talks about all these people who have worked on it. 40 leaders and the people that they're leading repaired 45 sections of the wall and 10 gates in 52 days. But I want you to look at verse 5. And next to them, there's a whole long list of who's doing what. And next to them, the Tekoites repaired, but their nobles would not stoop to serve their Lord. But their nobles would not stoop to serve their Lord. This is somewhere between complacency and passive-aggressive behavior, where they are purposely not doing anything because they object to this project. They're making it clear, I'm not doing a thing. They're nobles. They should be in there with everybody else, right? But their nobles wouldn't stoop, notice, to serve their Lord. They were not just refusing a project, they were refusing God as well. And the call that God had given to these people to do this project. and their nobles were not stooped to serve their Lord. That's another opposition that can come against a group of people who have a project. Complacency, refusal to get involved as a sort of rebellion. That can happen as well. That can feed the discouragement of the other people. The answer is always the same. Pray and get to work. Pray and get to work. I believe at this time in the life of our church, we come to a time where we need to consider revitalization. Things are going well. Good things are happening. Now is the time to be building on those good things that are happening and to consider revitalization for our church. Consider what is God doing among us and how can we follow him in what he's doing? How is God leading us? And how can we head into the future that he has for us? Now is the time to do that. Now is the time for revitalization in our church. And I think the place we start is just like Nehemiah. It's with a revitalization team. It's a group of people. It's not just leaders. It's a group of people who take time to sit down together and prayerfully seek the Lord, say, what is God doing in our midst at this time and how do we follow him? Well, one of the things we know that God is doing in our midst is he is making us an increasingly international church. And we rejoice in that and we want to follow him in that. What is the Lord doing in our midst and what can we do to follow him in what he's doing? So the small revitalization team would just spend some time reflecting on that. But it's a team that reflects our congregation. So people who are older, people who are younger, people who are members, people who are not members, people who have been around for a long time, people who just arrived, people from different cultural backgrounds. That'd be the best makeup of this kind of revitalization team. And I'm asking you to be part of that team. I've been praying that the Holy Spirit will put this on people's hearts. Right? I'm not going to use guilt and twist your arm. I'm just saying this is where we're at. This is an invitation to be a part of a revitalization team in this church. And if that's something God's putting in your heart, or you think, well, that's kind of interesting, then I want you to speak to me, call me, text me, email me, message me, and let me know. So what does it require? Okay. What it requires, what I envision is that we would get together once a month, a couple hours once a month, for probably the next 8 to 10 months. And we spend time just looking at what's happening in our church. Now, we're not alone in doing this. We have a coach who will help us if we want to go along this path. There is what he calls the revitalization pathway that we can follow. So there are things to do. It's outlined what it is we can do. We're not making it up just as we go along. To help us analyze, where are we at as a church? How is God leading us to go forward? But who are the people who will be a part of the revitalization team? Nehemiah had that team before he got started on that huge project. I'm going to continue in the book of Nehemiah, talking about revitalization, because I think it's all about that. It was about building the walls. Our modern term is revitalization. And some of the aspects of revitalization. But for us, pray and get to work. Our first step is a revitalization team. That's where we start with pray and get to work. Let's pray together. Jesus, this is your church. It's not our church. This is the church of Jesus Christ. We want to honor you. We want to serve you, love you. We want to share your message with each other, with those who come to this church, and with those that are within our influence outside of the walls of this church. And we want to do that in an intentional way. So, Lord, I just continue to pray. You put in the hearts of people to respond, to be a part of this revitalization team. For you, Jesus, for us as a church, and for how it will bless each of those who are involved in it. Thank you for this place to worship you. Thank you for the peace we have in our country to worship you. Thank you that you're with us.